But hey, what up, everybody that's here in the place to be? This is better late than never. I know this is a lot later than we would have liked to do it with Rebellion happening last week. The reason you can't see our face right now is that we're just having video difficulties. I made sure this was good to go yesterday, and then sure enough, today when we came on to podcast, um, it was we just couldn't get our faces on here, man. So it's a little frustrating. I'm gonna keep working with it throughout the week, but we at least wanted to do this audio style, get into Rebellion real quick, and let you know that this is gonna be myself and TW. We're gonna be the new team here on the Impact Lounge, actually reviewing the show each and every week, and we're gonna try to do it live stream video style, just like you saw with the Total Nonstop Impact guys. And just work with me a little bit, and we will get it popping. I promise. But we're gonna get into Rebellion here for night one, and when it comes to part two, we're gonna get on it a lot quicker. I promise. I got rid of the B-side podcast because it was a little critical for people, but I want you guys to know with this show, with myself and TW reviewing the show, it's still going to be very honest. And TW, who'd you say your favorite football team was? Was it the Giants?
It's the Jets, man.
Oh, the Jets. My bad, my bad. Yeah, the Jets. So he's a Jets fan. I'm a Chargers fan, Clippers fan. You know, a lot of Southern California teams. And the point I'm going to make is that we can be very critical about our sports teams, but that doesn't mean we're negative on our sports teams, because a passionate fan is not happy when their team isn't succeeding, or if their team
Right,
is doing
exactly.
the same thing too much and it's not working. You know, if you're watching your basketball team, like, fuck, we need a damn small forward, and they just won't sign a small forward. You know, you get frustrated as a fan. So sometimes when we get on these podcasts and these videos and we're saying, you know, hey, we didn't like this and we didn't like that, it's out of passion. It is not, you know, someone told me on my last podcast that, damn, BQ, you love the bitch. Well, you know, I learned once upon a time in the military that if you're going to say you don't like something, or you're going to complain about something, have a solution. And
Right.
I tend to think when I do my shows and my podcasts that when I say I don't like something, I do feel that I come with, well, this is what I would have done, or this is what I would have liked to be done. And that's what's the word I'm looking for? Critical,
Yeah, it's constructive.
constructive criticism. That's that. Bitching
Right.
is just, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, and having no feedback to build off that with. So
Right.
our reviews are still going to be honest, but we're going to be positive as well. And again, just roll with us a little bit with the difficulties we're having with our audio video, and I will get this up and running the correct way when I figure out what these little problems are. And as I said, I made sure this was going to be good to go. And then, sure enough, when it was game time, it just fell through again. So, uh, very frustrating. Um, but TW, before we get into this, do you want to say anything at all, whether it's introducing yourself or just whatever about yourself before we get into this rebellion?
All right, guys. So you know, so I've just listen. I'm an Impact fan, and like many of you who listen to Impact or who watch Impact, I felt like the show, the brand wasn't necessarily covered in the best light. Like so many things I listened to, I just got tired of the whole LOL TNA thing that just was going on, and it didn't really feel necessarily fair, right? So this is just my backstory how I got into Impact. But I won't really. But that's how I started this podcast, like like a long time ago, or whatever. And I just interact with people, fans like yourself who are listening right now, people who like Impact Wrestling and just kind of want to see it covered fair. And like BQ was saying before, we would not be if good fans hold the product accountable, right? That's different from, like he said, just bitching for the sake of bitching. But like, if we're like, yo, man, we have wanted to see Taya versus Jordan Grace for so long, and you aren't giving it to us, right? Like, I mean, to me, that's holding the product accountable. That's not saying, like, that's not just bitching for the sake of bitching. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, and also I would say this: if if we were just sitting up here, like, shilling for Impact Wrestling, like, y'all would get tired of that too. You would see through it. So, we're not gonna give you fake. We're gonna give you the real. And hopefully you like it. Hopefully you enjoy it. But we're gonna be entertaining. We're gonna have fun. And yeah, definitely feel free to, holler back at us, let us know what you think of it. And yeah, that's it.
So again, I'm not going to keep harping on this, but just work with us when it comes to the audio, video. We will get there. I promise. Just work with us. But we're going to get into this Rebellion Night 1. We're going to try to do it fairly quickly because this was obviously a show that already happened, and we don't want to, focus on it too much because night 2 is right around the corner. There's one thing though, man, that I wanted to bring up that I've already talked to you about this briefly, but they did an opening video package, and there was a voiceover, and a voiceover made a comment: if you are going to try, go all the way. And it seemed like this was going to be the theme of the show, and it seems like it's probably a bit of a theme going forward, kind of a mission statement for them. But this is also where this is actually something I've been really harping on ever since I started podcasting. So it's kind of funny to they say, okay, you're going to try go all the way, because there's a lot of things I don't feel like they go all the way when it comes to, the things I normally go off about with the social media and the marketing and all that stuff. Take this for instance. You've got really one of the best play-by-play announcers in wrestling on your payroll, and he's not your play-by-play announcer. You had Melissa Santos on payroll for, I don't know if she still is, but for a longest time, one of the best ring announcers, and she wasn't the ring announcer. So that's been a big, focus with me, is that, are you really putting your best foot forward, or you just kind of saying you are? So I hope that they actually do, take this in the future, and then, press forward with that kind of mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Just perfect example that you talk about. Like, I think part of it might be not wanting to, look like you're copying this or copying that. But hey, if you got somebody who's good at ring announcing, use them as a ring announcer, right? That makes perfect sense. If Melissa Santos is good at ring announcing and maybe not so much backstage interviewing, which I thought she was fine at that, but she was really good. Like, I, like probably you, first saw her at Lucha Underground, where she was good with the ring announcing. So use her in that role. It makes perfect sense, man. It makes perfect sense. That's one thing that, and you'll frequently hear me reference AEW, because AEW, I think, is doing it right as a startup promotion. You're taking people who the audience had previously seen in another setting, but you're just using them more effectively than they were seen before. And to me, that's the way to do it. You can still use people the way you know them to be used, but just use them better, right? Let them shine in a way that they didn't shine in their previous place that they were working. That just makes perfect sense to me. So if you got Matt Stryker and he's a good commentator, use Matt Stryker. You know what this probably is? It's probably Josh Matthews. Like, I've heard Josh Matthews wears a million hats at Impact Wrestling, and maybe he doesn't necessarily want to give up that spot as the voice of Impact Wrestling.
Yeah. Maybe that is the case. I've actually heard him said he wouldn't mind stepping down. I'm going to say real quick, dude, take your video off, because that should improve our audio stream here a little bit. I took I took mine off. So I know we were looking at each other and they can't see us, but I'm going to ask you to do that. But I've just hit the camera on your Skype. Like the camera icon. Yep. So, I've actually heard Josh saying he's willing to step down, but my longtime listeners know that I have an issue with the commentary I have for a long time. I'm going to say the commentary for this. No, let me give you a positive first. Rebellion, I think they made do with what they had to work with. I think they put on a good show. It's not easy to go out there and be like, well, there's no fans in the crowd. I mean, they hadn't, They had an opportunity to do something a little different, and I don't think they did. I think the formula was really safe, but I think the show was good. I'm gonna say that this was the worst announcing I've heard on an Impact broadcast in forever, and everyone knows that I'm going off on Don Callis every week. I'm hot and cold on Josh. Like, this commentary was not serious. The opening match, if Michael Elgin went on this whole Twitter thing of give Impact a chance with Rebellion, did it, and it seemed like people did from some of his Twitter traffic, and then you get this opening match, which was probably the worst match of the night, with commentary that was they were just joking back and forth with each other instead of really calling the action. So I think that because they're a husband and wife, they have a lot of fun doing this, but sometimes it's like, okay, guys, the inside jokes and all that, let's call the action. And even though I thought Madison's been doing good lately,
I think part of this has to do with the closed environment, the closed set environment that they're working in, and I think it kind of takes away from, in some ways, what it is to tape a wrestling show. Now, I said this jokingly before, but I kind of mean it. It's like, it shouldn't make that much a difference for Impact, because I've seen them tape Impact in front of some shitty houses, man. So, like, some of those houses they've done, like in Mexico and like Sam's Town Casino, like, I've seen them tape Impact in front of some crappy audiences. So, this shouldn't be that much different. And I can say that, but also, for people who have been working in wrestling, I'm sure, 90% of the adrenaline is going out in front of the crowd. Even if it's a small crowd, you're still getting that rush of performing in front of the crowd. And that's probably not that much different for the broadcast team, right? They probably get amped up to go deliver a good show. Now, I think that when you're working on a closed set environment, maybe it can be more of okay, action, as opposed to like, okay, red lights on, don't mess up. These people are here, they're gonna catch anything you do. And I think that can probably change the energy, that they're delivering, that they're recording with, that they're performing with at the time it's happening. All of that said, I haven't necessarily minded Madison Rayne on commentary.
I haven't either.
She's been okay. Better than Don Callis. Not that now people raved about Don Callis when he first came to Impact as a commentator. But I just think that, like, for whatever reason, he wasn't adding to these shows.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the vibe between him and Josh Matthews just wasn't good. Maybe it was, maybe it was the crossover, the blending between being a front office person and also being an on-camera person, wasn't allowing Don Callis to deliver the way that he would want to. But he was not adding anything as a commentator to these shows to me. As a matter of fact, I would say the best Impact combination that I've heard in a while was actually D'Lo and Josh Matthews on like a Twitch special.
Agreed.
So they could probably stand to go with that. I mean, that can't hurt. I'm not somebody who really focuses on the commentary too much, honestly. Like, the commentary doesn't necessarily bother me too much. I actually have Rebellion on in the background right now, and I'm watching it on mute, and this is fine for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say before we get into this first match, I don't like that they try to portray Josh as a nerd, because I've come in contact with him in real life a couple times. I remember listening to his little radio show he had him on for a little bit. Like, he doesn't come, like, in real life, doesn't come across as a nerd to me.
No,
but but they present him on television like that, and I think that you should kind of, as a viewer, have like respect for the ring announcer. I mean, not the ring announcer, but for the play-by-play. Like, now you can have a heel guy, like, so let's go back in the day, Bobby in the Brain, okay? I'm sorry, Bobby in the Brain, Gorilla in the Brain. Like, the Brain would be like, oh, this and this and this, or Jesse Ventura used to do it to Vince McMahon. Oh, you going off on him, but you still, right, but you still, kind of respected the play-by-play guy. They never, he still took the job real serious, no matter what that guy was saying in his ear. So when they present him like a nerd, they go, "Oh, Josh, you're a nerd." Like, I don't think that's a good look. Because I don't think he's like that in real life. I really don't. From the couple times I've been around him for a minute, at Impact shows and things like that, he doesn't come across like that to me in real life at all. Like, I think he's actually kind of a cool dude, to be honest. You have to bag Madison Rain. I mean, you know what I mean? So, you know, um, but I did kind of. They had their moments, but for the most part, I think they've been a pretty decent duo. But let's get into the show actually itself, Rebellion. The ring announcer, Pencer, has returned again, and he even says himself he doesn't know how long it's going to be for. And the reason he says that is because they brought him back once before, and then they got rid of him again. So I think he's being being optimistic. Like, okay, I'm going to be here for a while, but I don't know how long it's going to last. This automatically added to the show because whoever they had before, I thought was so bad. Like, he sounded like when you're a kid growing up and you're trying to sound like a ring announcer, like you're trying to be Howard Finkel, you know what I mean? Like, coming to the ring, but you're not really good at it. Like,
I think they've been rotating people based on where they've been taping. Like, just like, hey, send me a local ring, like reach out to the local promoters, because they have like local promoters for everywhere they're going to be, right? So they'll reach out to someone who, let's say, I would imagine if they were going to do a show anywhere in the Northeast, they reach out to the person who promotes Northeast wrestling, right? They do very well promoting shows in this area. And so what they'll probably do is they'll reach out to him and say, hey, by the way, I need a ring announcer. Can you get me somebody? And they'll suggest whoever they have, but again, what's the likelihood that person's going to be a television quality talent,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably what's been going on with a lot of these, changing faces for ring announcers, and just, not very good, honestly. Like, again, there is something to be said for being like a television quality talent. I used to do, oh my God, I used to work for a TV show you never heard of called the Trisha Show, and I used to warm up the audience before the show, and like I had like my like final call when she was getting ready to come out, and like I'd be like, everybody, let's make some noise, and the crowd loved it, right? Like, it was like that was just like my big like sign off or whatever, like to really introduce her when she was coming out, but like, that doesn't mean I could be a television quality ring announcer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, everybody is not built the same, and every talent is not created equal,
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right about that, but they did have one guy who was kind of a regular. And I know I keep saying we're going to get into Rebellion, but we're talking about aspects of the show. Because we're talking about the ring announcing and David Penzer's back. Like, I really think I've seen a lot of fans say this too. I would kind of like to see a ring announcer back in the ring that you can actually visually see, because that's how you connect as an at home viewer. I have I'm a big fan. I've talked about it on podcasts before. I'm a big fan of like the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchises. Like when I was first married at 20, my ex-wife used to watch them. We divorced 6 years later, but I have watched them ever since. I've been watching it for 20 years.
Was it because of The Bachelor? Did The Bachelor do you in?
No, no, definitely not. Definitely not. I see where you're going with that. No, I just enjoyed the show. I always have, and now my girlfriend and I watch it, and we love it. So my point is, the very first Bachelor episode was all about finding love, and then they're like, okay, this show got real popular, it's being real successful, so the Bachelor franchise said, we have to build characters within the show. So the guy who's the Chris Harrison, who's the host, at first his role was real minimal, and then they said, okay, now Chris Harrison needs to be a character on the show that people can relate to. And then they would have the Bachelor Mansion that they stayed in, and the Bachelor Mansion ended up becoming a character of the show,
Wow.
Kind of like the Impact Zone was like a character of the show. I'm using the word character, but you kind of see it, like that was.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It was something you started relating with. So to have a ring announcer that we can see his face, his or her face, where we know the names of the officials and stuff like that. That is a thing where you're an at-home viewer and you're connecting with a product that you're watching on TV. Other you feel distant if you don't know who's ring announcing and who's what the names of the refs are. Little things like that. How many times have they brought in ring announcers and the fans they say their name, but not ring announcers, backstage interviewers, that people don't even really know what their names are. Like they brought in a new girl today. This show, I don't remember. I already don't remember what her name is.
I think it's Gia or something.
Yeah, yeah. And then they had that weird investigative reporter dude that.
Yeah. That didn't even last long, man.
Yeah, like Mackenzie Mitchell was someone we connected with as a audience. You know what I mean? But now they keep bringing people in for short stints, and we're not connecting. So these are real things when you're watching any kind of TV show. But let's do this. Let's get into the actual matches itself. So it kicked off with OVE versus Tommy Dreamer Rhino and the return of Crazy Steve. So everyone was super jazzed about Crazy Steve coming back. I was real critical that they are going to drop the ball big time on this announcement, and I definitely put my foot in my mouth because this was a good, very random, but it was a good surprise to see Crazy Steve back. Josh Matthews couldn't have sold this any worse. He just said, "Well, I can't wait to hear who it is," and then when it is, he's just, "Oh, Crazy Steve,"
Yeah.
He wasn't surprised. He clearly already knew he was coming down, but you knew that. He wasn't surprised. He sold it horribly, and you probably saw this on social media, and you probably even thought the same. They were selling Crazy Steve as part of the menagerie. They said he had a history with Rosemary, but they didn't bring up the decay once.
Right.
And his character was more menagerie than was decay. It was kind of a cross between the two, but it was really weird that they did that. I couldn't for the life of me why you have this one of the most popular factions and for how long, and then one faction that was like, okay, whatever, and then that's what you're focusing on. But what'd you think about the Crazy Steve return? And
so I don't know. To me, whatever. Honestly, like when Crazy Steve was in Impact, he wasn't like a showstopper to me. Like I was not like, oh, let me watch this segment. Crazy Steve's on TV. You know what I mean? Like I never felt like that about Crazy Steve. Now Rebel, on the other hand, let's talk about it. But but that was the old Menagerie days. But even with Decay, I just wasn't, Crazy Steve wasn't like a huge deal to me. So, the return of Crazy Steve, to me, that was like an LOL thing. But then to see a couple segments later, some of the other stuff that we'll talk about, it felt crazy to me to try to focus on Crazy Steve's return when there was such bigger news to come.
Okay, fair enough. We'll definitely get into all that. So the match itself, as far as being an opener, I thought this wasn't like the normal opener we get from Impact, where we get, maybe it's an X Division match, but usually that first match, with the exception of the last pay-per-view, because I think they kicked off with Shamrock versus Fulton, but with the exception of that first match is usually killer. It's something really, really exciting. And this match was really, really slow, really lethargic. It didn't really have a sense of urgency at all. And I did have interest in the return of Crazy Steve. I mean, I personally was like, okay, cool, because I was kind of upset when he left. He's not, now, kind of what you're saying, he's not a main eventer, he's not whatever, but he was, he's a better TNA talent than anyone they brought back for that TNA throwback show. In my opinion, I think, but the match itself, I was fairly confident in saying OVE was going to lose this, but part of me was like, dude, there's no way they can lose. Like, and we were talking about this offline. The crazy thing about OVE is that, so their losing streak, they've won a couple matches here and there, And
Right.
Jake was X Division champion, Sammy was world champion. They still lost non-title matches and all that shit. But
Right.
this losing streak of theirs is well over a year. As far as probably losing over 90% of their matches when they go out there. But the crazy thing is, this is a faction, and they are losing. They're not just losing to like the Rascals or tag teams on the roster. They're losing to random teams that are getting put together.
Yeah.
They're let's get Tommy Dreamer. Let's get Rhino. Sabu beat him.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but listen, you're right. Like, and I think the thing where this becomes problematic, right, is I mentioned this on the Talking About Pod a few weeks ago. They tried to do something nice where they had Rohit Raju come out and get a win. I think he got a win against the Rascals the previous night on a Twitch special, and then the following week he got a win. The Desi Hit Squad got a win on an episode of Impact. And I was like, this is cool that you're trying to do something with this guy, but you can't expect us to take this serious. Like, you've been doing nothing with this guy for how long, and you can't just expect us to turn around and be like, oh, he's good now. Like, it just don't work like that. We get used to seeing somebody in a certain way because you're showing us them that way. And that's the danger that they're falling into with OVE. Before, when you were mentioning this, like, I wasn't totally in agreement with you because I felt like, hey, a bad guy doesn't necessarily have to win. Their job is just to put the good guys in danger. And I think they still consistently do that to an extent. But now, since we've had the questions about whether or not Sammy is with OVE, right, then it's kind of taken their teeth out. And so you're right. Like, they are getting to a stage where, are they going to just be looked at as losers? Because they do lose seemingly all the time. And it's not like they're just losing to the world champ, right? It's not like they're just losing to the untouchable, the untouchable act at the top of the card. Like, no, they're losing to Tommy Dreamer and whoever he digs up from ECW. And so that's not a good look.
What would you do? We'll move on from this. How would you fix OVE at this point?
How would I fix OVE at this point? At this point, since they've already, on previous episodes of Impact, since they were already teasing, should we move on without Sammy? I would have OVE jump Sammy out of the group. That's what I'd have them do. I'd have them, because Sammy is such a big deal in so many ways, like to where it bleeds over. If you pay attention to wrestling from the outside, or even if you watch the show, you can't separate Sami Callihan from being a big deal in Impact Wrestling and being a huge part of the Impact Wrestling program. So I would have OVE kind of establish their self by jumping Sammy out. Gosh, this is going to date myself a little bit, but I remember when Shawn Michaels lost the WWE Championship to Stone Cold, and then the next night on Raw, Triple H comes out and basically says, hey, I'm taking over because Shawn Michaels dropped the ball, right? Now, I had been a fan of the group with Shawn Michaels up to that point, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to ride this out and just see where they're going. And it turns out they ended up doing some good stuff. But I would say OVE should start off by doing something like that, right? They don't have to necessarily denounce Sammy, but they should jump him out of the group to put their foot down and establish that he's gone. And then they got to start winning some matches, man. They got to no. They don't have to necessarily start winning some matches. They just got to start doing some bad shit. They got to start, like, terrorizing people, right? Like, because I'm okay, even if they don't win matches, but if they start beating people up and putting people in danger, right? Like, have a great match, and have OVE just run in and ruin it. You know what I mean? Like, do some stuff to, like, really establish them. Like, it can be done, right? Like, it can be done. And, maybe they could add another person, or maybe they could just, start featuring, Fulton or one of the Chris brothers. I don't think one of the Chris brothers really has the personality to be a leader of that group. But yeah, I mean, they need somebody as a new frontman, and they just got to start raising some hell. Like, I'm a firm believer that you can do anything on TV if you just put the time into it.
Yeah, you're Ohio versus everything, taking over everything, but you take over nothing. Like take over everything, like really cause some
Right.
havoc. I really think adding a female to the group as a mouthpiece, whether it's Jake's wife or whatever, I think that would really rebrand their look. They have if you catch
Is
their
Jake's wife a wrestler?
yeah.
Is she somebody who we've heard of?
Yeah, she goes by Nevaeh Christ. She teams up with Jessica Havoc on the Indies.
Okay, I've heard her.
Yeah, and they team up on Women of Wrestling too. But she's good. And she's got a good look. She would be a great addition. I mean, they need new knockouts, and
Mm-hmm.
for one to come in and just like this would all make sense if they had a front man, someone come in and be like, "What the? Okay, I'm gonna use this for an example. Remember, LAX had a little losing streak going, and then Kingston came in and like set him on the right path again. Like, what is going on with you guys? Have you lost your way? Are you know what I mean? Like, he was able to
Right.
come in
Yeah, yeah,
and steer them the right direction. So that's
right.
what I would do with them. Let's move on here though. Josh had I'm just gonna touch on this real quick. He had an interview with Eddie Edwards. It was what it was. Uh, he still has the Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy, so I mean he doesn't have to compete for the world title. Um, I just wish they would have other people interview instead of Josh. I just
Did they say that? Did they establish that? That he still like in the interview? Did they say you still have the Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy, so you don't have to?
I don't believe so.
Uh, okay, I think that's good. I think that's a good idea to try and just say, hey, we don't know when we're going to get back to normal, but we're going to let you pick back up where you left off once you are able to come back to it. I think that's actually a great idea.
Absolutely. But this whole Call Your Shot thing, man, this has a opportunity to be kind of their money in the banks, if you will. And
Right.
it clearly Eddie was going to win the match of Bound for Glory. He was the only person that could possibly win that thing. So we knew he was going to win, but it's been like a prop ever since. You know what I mean? Like they should
Yeah.
really, when someone used to win the Money in the Bank, you every time they got in the ring, you're like, oh man, is this the time they're, or every episode
Yeah.
you're like, could this happen? And they haven't presented it quite in that light. And then they loosely acted like this best of seven series was going to be for the trophy. They kind of loosely insinuated, but didn't really like if they would have said this is for the freaking trophy, that would have made that series really matter.
Yeah.
You,
Well,
you
no, no,
know,
they said that. They said that. They did establish that what because oh god because they had a few matches and I was like, oh man, I'm just really tired of seeing Michael Elgin and Eddie Edwards. So they said, okay, this is going because Eddie beat him at the pay-per-view, and then actually no, the pay-per-view was the pay-per-view. Did they do more than one pay-per-view match? I think they did. Yeah, because I remember when they fought at the pay-per-view, I was like, oh god, like I just don't see anybody beating Michael Elgin for the way that they presented him. Right, he's kind of getting the Roman Reigns syndrome to me a little bit, where whenever I see him, I'm assuming that he's winning until he loses. Right, and so that's where I'm at with Michael Elgin. So when he was going against Eddie Edwards at whatever pay-per-view where the match was for the trophy, I was just assuming that Elgin was winning. And then when they had Eddie win, then they had to come back to it and have Elgin say, no, 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 I totally beat you. My shoulder was up, whatever it was. And, just kind of keep it going that way. But they did explicitly state that it was going to be for the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Trophy.
I feel
Which
like it wasn't clear though. I feel like they
I feel
made.
like, though, see, to me, I felt like before you do things like that, like before you, F around with the trophy, like have the person actually use it. You know what I mean? Like, establish what the trophy is and is used for before you start tinkering with who has it.
Right, that's what gets people excited. I mean, you have to get people excited. Things can't just be props. So, but they did this. It was kind of a nice, say I made a decision for my family. It was a nice personal touch. And then they kind of glossed over this, but they're just like, oh, Tessa Blanchard's stuck in Mexico. If you don't know, for those who don't know, she has a residence in Mexico. She has a house in Mexico and she has one in Southern California, maybe somewhere else too, but she has at least two. Um, I think that was kind of silly. I'm fairly certain she's really in real life in California, because no one in their right mind would be in Mexico right now during the pandemic. Uh, no one in their right mind, because I mean, yeah, she is trapped there, but you could also say she's trapped in California. My family's in California. Like, they're highly um, encouraged not to fly or not to travel out of there. But
Does is it, you think she might be with Daga? Is that's her fiance, right? Does he live in Mexico?
I don't really know. I'm sure they cohabitate wherever it is they live. But she had said she has a lives in each place because that's where she wrestles the most when she's not.
Well, you know, so I was listening to the Keeping It 100 podcast with Conan, and if you guys haven't heard it, the past two episodes he's had interviews with Taya Valkyrie, and she has you know, she's part of a group of young wrestlers in Mexico that all kind of came up over the last 5, 10, no, not five, like the last 10 or so years. And she was really kind of telling her story about, you know, that whole group of, you know, like her and Paraguayo Jr. and, you know, Tessa's kind of in that mix now too, of like, there's a whole culture of, you know, young, talented wrestlers that are coming up. You know, guys like, you know, a lot of the guys who were in Impact around 2017 when Jeff Jarrett came back, and and are now like in NXT and stuff. You know, she's part of that whole group, like Taya and Tessa. Like, they're both part of that group. So I could see, like you said, her having a residence in Mexico and spending a lot of time down there regularly. She just might just be used to being there.
Do you think that they just like, this is the world title match? Do you think that they just like glossed over the fact that, okay, well, Tessa's not here, and then at the same time, I think it's ridiculous to insinuate that they might be stripping Tessa of the championship. I'm sure they're not going to do that, but to even insinuate, because how long, this time last year Brian Cage was the champ. Maybe it wasn't this time last year, but you know what I'm talking. There was he was the champion. This motherfucker didn't wrestle for months, and they didn't strip him of the title. So, and being that the wrestling isn't real, I'm sure you can work something around saying, okay, given everything, Tessa is not required to defend the title at the pay-per-view.
Right. So here's where I think this is interesting. To me, this is interesting in a couple of ways. So I remember reading an article in the weeks leading up to what was that? Hard to Kill. In sport that Sports Illustrated and The Ringer, I think it was The Ringer. Really good article on Tessa, dives into her background and everything like that. And they do a lot of mentioning her contract status in that. And in doing so, you know, she was frequently, her and Scott D'Amore were both very evasive in answering contracts about Tessa, answering questions about Tessa's contract status. And the most we could kind of gather is that her contract is up sometime this year around summertime. That's, you know, obviously without having inside knowledge of, you know, what's signed and what isn't, you know, what dates are there and aren't there, you know, we don't know. So based on that level of speculation that's out there, we don't know when Tessa's contract is up. And we don't know when you know, things will be back to normal, right? We don't know when Tessa will be able to get back into an Impact ring. And also, with as hot as she was leading up to Hard to Kill, there's no good reason for us to think that she would re-sign with Impact Wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, you know, AEW is thriving, and you know, obviously, you know, WWE NXT is out there, so we have no good reason to think that Tessa would re-sign with Impact Wrestling. I'm saying all that just to say we don't know if this set of tapings will carry us through the end of Tessa's contract.
Okay. Okay.
So the plan may have been for her to drop the title at this pay-per-view. Listen, everybody's plans for everything got changed as of March, right? when the world went on lockdown, whatever you had planned, COVID-19 wiped its ass with. Okay, um, so we don't know what's going on. They may have had to get that title from her. We may never see Tessa on Impact TV again. You know what I mean? Looking at the Twitter exchange that she had with Michael Elgin, I honestly, like, I've come away from this feeling like they have no plans for the two of them to have a match. And I could be wrong, I could be right, but all I can do is decipher based on what we've seen, what they talked about on Twitter, what we're seeing on Impact TV. And so I said all that just to say that it seems weird for them to imply that they're stripping her of the title, but when you think about the real life things going on here, again, we don't know if Tessa will be back on Impact to drop the title. Now, my personal feeling about this, if that is the case, is that I feel like she should show up and drop that title no matter what, because Impact took, a big swing by trying to put the title on a woman. First ever, major company putting their headline title, their flagship title on a woman. That was a big swing, a big leap of faith that Impact took in her. It hasn't paid off. You know what I mean? She hasn't done anything with it. And part of it is due to her demons coming back to haunt her the night before she won the title.
Yeah.
Okay. All of that said, I think she owes it to Impact to drop that title on TV. You know what I mean? On TV, on pay-per-view, on something. So I think it would be very sad, a sad set of circumstances if she doesn't show up and drop that title. But again, you got to deal in the real world. You know what I mean? Because if you're Don Callis and Scott D'Amore and you have a handshake deal that Tessa's going to show up and drop the title, and then you look up and she's sitting in the stands at an NXT takeover, what do you do? Right?
Right.
So there's a lot we don't know, right? But I think the company is in kind of cover your ass mode.
Yeah, fair enough. You make some actually really good points there that I really didn't think about. I actually personally think Tessa will stick around for a while because, you bring up AEW. I like AEW, but there's no one for her to work with there.
Their women's division is awful.
Right. And a lot of their fans will be like, oh, well, if they got Tessa Blanchard. No, because Tessa has no one to work with. That company actually has to build from the middle up a little bit. I would say the bottom, but because they got a bunch of women who don't wrestle at all. From the middle up, you got to bring in the Purrazzos and things like that who can work before you're ever going to land a Tessa Blanchard. And I think she really wants to do the intergender stuff, and I don't think anyone offers that to her right now. So let's move on from that, though. I believe her name was Gia Miller. Talked about it earlier. She did random additions. I hope they didn't get rid of Gabby because I thought she was really good. She did around the ring for a while and did a really good job because Josh sucks at that. She was doing a really good job, and really, I'm sorry, I'm saying he sucks. He doesn't. It's just he's been doing it for so long. Like the mannerisms, the questions he's gonna ask. It's spice it up a little. So she was doing a really good job with that. This girl came on board. I don't think she's as good as Gabby is, but I don't know if they're gonna have both of them or what, or but it's like a revolving door of these backstage announcers, and it's what I said earlier. When you have these revolving doors, or the fans aren't connecting with someone on screen, like it makes you feel very distant from the product, So
yeah.
But she interviewed Michael Elgin, and I like that he was just like, "Who are you? I don't know you." The way he kicked that out was freaking great. So the next match was the Rascals against Triple XL versus TJP and Falaba versus it's a three-way. Okay, because I was thinking it was four-way because they had Reno Scum last time on TV. So I want to say whoever's doing Impact's theme music right now is killing it. Like the new Sami Callihan theme is awesome. Kylie Race is awesome. The Triple XL one is really good. TJP and Falabaz is really good. Like there's some pretty good theme songs right now, man. Like there was a period of time where it was just noise, but the audio is getting better with Impact to where we can actually hear the theme songs. I mean, before, like, it was just you just heard some noise in the background. So they're doing a lot better with that. But this match here, this would have served better as the opener, because man, dude, TJP is killing it, and the Rascals are always good. I'm becoming a big Larry D guy. I'm really enjoying him a lot. I didn't think Triple XL had the best showing in this particular match, but I mean, they had a good showing, but I mean, I felt like the Rascals and TJP really stood out here, and it was a really entertaining match, and I thought it better served as the opener. But here is the one negative I'm going to throw out there. These three teams were fighting for nothing, and why? I can't think of many multi team matches in AEW, so I can't use that for an example. And then I haven't watched WWE in years, but I do remember that anytime there was any kind of multi-man match, there was usually this person's going to be the number one contender. They for all the faults and issues that company has, they never just marched out random multi-man matches. And Impact likes to do that because they want to get more people on. But what were these teams fighting for? Nothing. It's nothing to be like, hey, they're good. Now, granted, I know the North pretty much issued an open challenge to a team from Canada earlier. I thought that was great because that's a way of they can't leave Canada, so that's a way of creating Impact content, saying, hey, but the North is wrestling in Canada. So I think that's actually genius. But there's no reason they couldn't say with this, hey, the winner of this match gets a future title shot. I mean, you have this Call Your Shot gauntlet where the guy's getting a title shot months down the road. You've had they used to have the Call Your Shot, the briefcases. I forgot what they were called. The Feast
or Fired.
Yeah. So, and they didn't cash in until down the road. So why not just, hey, the winner of the team gets a future title shot instead of fighting for nothing when we just saw almost the same match the week before on TV. So that's the one thing I didn't.
I'm gonna tell you why not. If I can just button here just a little bit. I think that it's actually, to me, a better idea to make me care about the participants before you give them stakes, right? Like you can create stakes. Like they don't have to have a plot device before you make me care about them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like like the Feast or Fire briefcase or whatever, like that's a plot device, right? Like so now this tag team has a shot at the title. But make me care about why they have a shot. You know what I mean? Like make me care about like like little things like I said before, like jokingly, that Reno Scum, to me, I was turned off by them because I felt like they look like neo-Nazis to me. But I noticed that they have consciously adapted their look to where they don't look like that anymore. And I'm like, you know what? That's a little thing, but it makes them more appealing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like it's we all have our things. So I think what they're doing right now with the tag teams is, just show us these guys. Make me care. Make me care about Larry D and AC Romero, right? Like let me care about these guys. Let me care about TJP and Fallah Bahh. You know what I mean? Like show me why I should care about these teams, and then show me let me fall in love with TJP and Fallah Bahh, and then break my heart when they don't get the tag team title shot. You know what I mean? And make me root for them to fight their way back through all the teams and actually try to win the titles. So I think right now they just got to establish this division, give this division some teeth. Like when these teams come out, they should be getting cheered or booed, and we're just getting to know these teams. So I say right now, they got no business fighting for title shots because we don't care about these teams. Now, we care about the North, right? The North is badass. They pinned Tessa and Eddie Edwards a couple of weeks ago on Impact. And I'm like, that was a huge win for them because you just had them defeat, like openly, cleanly, in the middle of the ring, defeat two people who were supposed to be fighting in the main event for your world title. that says that these guys are a big deal. They're a top act, and as a tag team, they can't be beat by the top singles act. And so you've established them. We care about them. We know they're badasses. They don't need to fight any of these other teams that are trying to build a rep right now. Just keep having them maul, other people. Make us hate the North and really want to see them lose. Like, work on that, and then, when you build up the Rascals or build up TJP and Fowler, then that match will be more of a big deal.
That's all really, really well said, because right now a lot of these teams are just trading wins, and they're not getting any meaningful wins. And we definitely don't want to go back to the days of, random title shots that Impact used to do a lot. Someone would, I remember Marche Rocket debuted, and then the next episode he wrestled for the X Division Championship and lost. And it was just like, it's like, you know what I mean? So I will say about Triple XL, I love the presentation of Triple XL, because they're not coming out there like two comedy characters. Like, they come out and they mean business. They look like they want to come out and hurt you. And I like that. I like that about the presentation of them a lot. I'm really happy that they paired the two of them together. But the ending sequence was really good, except there was something with Larry D. I wrote it down in my notes. There was something where he got a near fall, but it really took away from what was a really, really high action sequence, because it got to his part and it was really slow, and it was a near fall that didn't need to happen, because when you don't have a crowd, there's no reason to throw that many near falls in there. But overall, the Rascals won, and entertaining match, definitely. Willie Mack took on Ace Austin, X Division title match. I will say I was shocked that Willie Mack won this match. Now, they're obviously telegraphing. I called this actually a while ago, but then Rich Swann got hurt. That Rich Swann, because they were kind of teasing that Willie Mack was going to turn on Rich Swann. And I said months ago, I actually think Swann is going to turn on Mack. And right now, I feel like they're kind of telegraphing it, because the way they keep talking about, we're going to fight for the tag team championships. I mean, the tag teams who are wrestling right now are not even talking about fighting for the tag team championships. No one's challenging the North,
Right.
So you got this team, they can't even wrestle as a team right now, but they keep talking about, we're going to do this. We're going to win this title. The thing is that Willie Mack and Rich Swann are both such bad actors that
it's so bad.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm connecting with the story. Like, my gut tells me that Rich Swann is going to turn on him, but I don't think either of them can come off as a heel. And Rich Swann, I actually think he was really close to getting a big baby face push, and I think they need him. Like, the only top baby faces are Eddie Edwards and Tessa, and you're already putting them in the main event. So there's no way they don't have any fresh baby faces waiting who are, which I'm pretty sure Eric Young's going to show up, and he's going to go immediately to the top of the card. We know that's going to happen if he indeed comes. He immediately to the top of the card. But and we'll probably win the championship, to be honest. But I did not expect Willie Mack to win this one. I didn't think he was ready to be the guy yet. And I think Ace Austin is really coming into his own, and has been really entertaining and great on the mic. And, when he first debuted, I didn't care for him. But as time goes, and I'm such a big Reno Scum guy. I'm really, really cool with Thornstowe. I like those guys. So I like them as a team. I didn't see Willie Mack winning. This caught me off guard, but the match was good. It was fun. I didn't like that ending sequence when he did like the stunner, because he really just dropped his balls on the corner.
Right. That didn't look good.
No, that looked awful. But besides that, the match was good. This is one thing I can't stand in wrestling. Every company does this. So Willie Mack kicks out of the fold. Every time someone kicks out of a finisher, that means the other wrestler is going to kick out of his finisher later. Like, it does not fail. Like Hulk Hogan used to kick out of everyone's finishers at the pay-per-view, But then when he dropped the leg, that didn't mean someone was going to kick out of that. You,
Right.
you know, but modern day wrestling, they love to trade near falls on finishers. So when he kicked out of the fold, I knew that when he went for the stunner, the first stunner, that Ace Austin was going to kick out of that. I mean, which no one has any business kicking out of the stunner, so it's silly. But anyway, Willie Mack gets the win. He's the new X Division champion. I wouldn't have went with this personally, but there's obviously a storyline going on here. It's just, as I said, the acting is so bad with it that it's like I don't really know what they're doing. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like they're clearly trying to get to Willie Mack and Rich Swann. Um, I am curious as to what's next for Ace Austin because it really looked like they have plans for Ace Austin. Like he appears to be ascending up the card, and again, things just appear to be in flux right now. Again, what's happening with Tessa? What's happening with the world title? If Tessa was going to be the world champion, I can see Ace Austin ascending up the card and possibly working with Tessa, over the world title. But again, we don't know what's going on with Tessa. So what's going on with Ace Austin? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like Willie Mack himself, I don't know. I don't. As is currently packaged, he's not a great talker. His matches are cool. Listen, I'm a fat guy myself, but I feel like he needs to tighten it up a little bit. I just don't want to, not a fan of that. But yeah, I'm not saying he didn't deserve a chance to be the X Division champion. I'm not curious as to where it's going. I know they're going with him and Rich Swann, but I'm not excited for it. So they got work to do to get me excited for Willie Mack versus Rich Swann. And I'm curious as to what's going to happen next with Ace Austin because he's done a pretty good job as the X Division champion. I didn't see him as a champion before he won the title. That was kind of a surprise win to me. And he's done a great job in that role. They've done a lot of character development with him. And I honestly thought that there was a great program to be had between Ace Austin and Trey Miguel. And it looked like they were trying to break Trey out as kind of the single star of the Rascals. And I thought there was, again, some great stuff to be had between Trey and Ace. And you can always bring in Reno Scum and the rest of the Rascals for some quality trios matches. So, yeah, I just, I don't know where, again, I keep saying I don't know where it's going. I do know where it's going. I'm just not excited about it.
Right.
So we'll see.
Same here. And I'm going to go back to what I said. I really think Rich Swann is needed in the babyface role. I'm not too into the "What's up, my brother," Rich Swann. I like the little more. He goes out there and has fun, but I like the little more serious Rich Swann. He started becoming a little more cartoony after a while in his character. But when he had that match in the Gauntlet where he lasted really long and everything, I thought that was go back to the Kofi Kingston winning the title thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well now you won the title, well now stop skipping around. I really thought really very similar thing with Rich Swann when he hit that stride. Like I would have. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to get. I mean, I know what I'm trying to get at. I'm just trying to find the right words.
Rich Swann was hot right then. They should have rolled that out. I feel you on that. I do feel you on that. And to be honest, to a wrestling fan, there is no better way to endear someone. Like you can do all the Superman wins you want. You can do all of the quality storytelling you want, but there is no better way to endear a wrestler to wrestling fans than having them fight their way through a bad ass whooping or wrestle their way through a big time, gauntlet or something like that. You know what I mean? Like watching these guys fight their way through big time adversity is how wrestlers become endeared to wrestling fans. Like it is what it is. And what you just mentioned about Rich Swann, why they should have went with him at that moment, that's totally it.
Yeah. I had a point that I was gonna hammer that home with, and I actually just forgot it. But Oh no. What I was gonna say was what they were trying to get for Tessa, they actually got with Rich Swann. As
Mm,
far as that really organic, everyone got really behind him. But yeah, Willie Mack is the new X Division champion. I did like the robe and the contacts because Willie Mack is not a character. Um, I was really disappointed that they brought Johnny Swinger in after. Like, I'm not a Johnny Swinger guy, and I happen to think the '90s is the greatest era ever. Um, I was a teenager during that era, but I don't. I think it's bad to keep attaching him to Willie Mack.
mm.
If you're trying to make this dude a serious, I just I don't like it at all. What do we got after this? I did put in my notes here that the coast to coast that Willie Mack did was I really liked that in the match that he went from one turnbuckle to the other.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. So after this we get Kiera Hogan versus Kylie Ray, and I thought this really stood out to me. I enjoyed this match. Dude, Kylie Ray's good, man. Like, she can go. Like, there's a lot of similarities in her character to Allie, but she's and I love Allie. She's a way better wrestler than Allie.
Right.
You know what I mean? So she's able to really. She's got her. It's crazy to think she never really wrestled on TV before this. She did
Oh, really? Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, she did the AEW thing for a pay-per-view or one or two shows, but really, I mean, she's an indie talent who came and she is polished from top to bottom.
Right.
And she has a great body too, and I don't mean that in a sexual way. I mean, like, she is.
I do. No, kidding.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mean it that way, but she's just in great shape. Like, she's just she's awesome, man. And then Kiera Hogan is. I really think she sooner than later needs to be the Knockouts champion. I love this match, dude, from just top to bottom, and it's just fucking awesome. Like, what'd you think of it?
I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I thought this match would have been shorter, and I also thought Kiera Hogan would have gotten the win there. I didn't think that was a good look for Kiera Hogan to lose to someone who just got here. But Kylie Ray can go. She can wrestle. And Kiera Hogan can also wrestle. Like, I remember years ago seeing Kiera Hogan wrestle Laurel Van Ness.
Yeah, I knew where you're going with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, I was like, man, Kiera Hogan's a better wrestler than Laurel Van Ness, and Laurel Van Ness is the Knockouts champion. This is crazy. But but right now, I feel like Kiera Hogan hasn't gotten enough consistent ring work on Impact, and I think she can do more than she's doing. So I mean, the match was better than I expected. It was better than I expected. It was longer than I expected, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was pleasantly surprised, but I'm not sure what they're going to do with Kiera going forward because, like I said, I think that, when somebody first gets there, they kind of got to work their way. They should have to work their way up the card a little bit. And so for Kylie Ray to come right in and lose to Kiera Hogan, I kind of feel like it should be Kiera Hogan getting, a little bit of a push right now because Taya is, to me, like, she's so good, bro. Like, honestly, Taya Valkyrie is my favorite wrestler right now. Like, she just the stuff that she is doing is so good. Like, so many levels to her character, and when she's working, like, she gives you so much, with the quality facial expressions, not like Tessa. With the goofy facial expressions.
Yeah.
She so to me, Taya is the standout of the Knockouts division, and Jordynne Grace has the title, but they still need to build up the rest of that division. You know what I mean? So with Jordynne Grace being at the top, Taya being, like, to me, Taya has kind of ascended to what I would call, like, John Cena level. Like, you don't have to be the champion to be the attraction.
Yeah.
And I think Taya is that right now. And then and in a weird way, by Tessa becoming the Impact champion, it also elevated Taya because I was looking at I was just looking at both of them at the same time, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Tessa's hot right now, but I'm watching Taya, and I'm like, I feel like Taya would be better in this role than Tessa. She'd even be a little more believable going against the men in a lot of ways. And so to me, it was like it kind of elevated Tessa's elevation, also elevated Taya. And I think, I wouldn't be surprised if someone were to ask her, and if she were to say, hey, I honestly took my game to another level when I saw that Tessa was getting that kind of a push. So all of that, bringing it back to Kiera Hogan and Kylie Ray, they still need to build up that division. I think that division can be very good, but much like the tag team division, you got to make me care. You know what I mean? You got to make me care. Again, like what we saw the last time we saw Taya, and she was beating the hell out of Tenelle Dashwood, right? Like just for no other reason other than that she's an evil badass, right? That's boom. We know who you are and we care. You know what I mean? We either love you for that or we hate you for that, but we know who and what you are. We need that from Kiera Hogan. We need that from Kylie Ray. We need that from Su Yung. You know what I mean? We need that from everybody who's in the Knockouts division right now. So I was pleasantly surprised by the match, and I'm curious as to where they'll both go from here.
I was thinking last time Taya wrestled, it came across my mind. I was like, wow, she would be a major loss for this company. And if you go back to when she debuted, she did not have a clear cut character. She did not arrive in and she'll tell you the same thing. She didn't arrive in the best shape in the world. She's in tremendous shape right now. I mean, phenomenal. But she didn't arrive in the best shape. She wasn't really having very many great matches. She was a good signing, though. You know what I mean? People were really genuinely excited for her, but it wasn't really clicking right away. And, dude, where she has taken her character from the beginning, man, God, she would be a major loss.
So much. She's so good, bro. I don't want to turn this into the gushing over Taya podcast, but I mean, like, yo, she's so good. I respect the performance, the art, and all the little details she puts into her character. You know what I mean? It's just like all the little things. And then again, like throughout the match, how she'll start beating up on Johnny Bravo. You know what I mean? Like she's like, even when they did the whole thing, Jordynne Grace comes in and chases her out of the ring. And then at the top of the ramp, she does the stomp off in just such a way where it's like, this isn't over. I'm still going to be flipping out when we get backstage. I was like, yo, man, it's just like, yo, she's so good. And you're right. She would be a major loss for them right now.
But to go back to the match, Kylie's really, really smooth. So I just really enjoyed watching her. But Kiera, to your point, she needs a big statement win. I think a good win against Tenille Dashwood would help her because no one beats Tenille. Even Taya was getting ready to challenge for the Knockouts Championship, and she still lost to her. So Tenille's only lost once. So I think a good match with and it has to be a good match. Like Tenille has to wrestle good. But if Kiera got a good statement win over her, I think that would elevate her. After the match, she acted like she was done and she was sick of the BS, almost like she's gonna leave the company type of attitude. So I feel like there's another step they're gonna go with her here, because they got to do something with her. She's a future champion. So let's get into the main event and send this one home. This was Sami Callihan versus Ken Shamrock. And I will say that every time they do one of these cinematic matches, dude, it hits me out of nowhere every time. Like, I'm never like, oh, this is where they'll go with it. It happens. It always comes out of nowhere. And it should have been expected because you could tell that when this Boneyard match happened, that, I'm always real critical of Impact's YouTube. I think it's awfully ran. But
yeah,
they came with top 5 cinematic matches. They're always trying to piggyback off what's going on.
Yeah, I do kind of hate that.
Yeah. So they came with top 5 cinematic matches. And you could tell. Now, I know that Impact has been doing this for a while. I get it. But I think that people at Impact were genuinely bothered that AJ and Undertaker did that, and then it got over like it was something never seen before. Same with the Firefly Funhouse match and everything. So when this match started going backstage and they started doing, I said, you know what? These motherfuckers were like, oh, we're gonna make sure they remember we do this too. Like they once that happened, okay, we're gonna do that now. Something I didn't talk about here, and a lot of people have been saying this: the background music for the episode and for this match, horrendous. They were playing music in the background of the interviews. It sounded so low budget and cheap, and the music was too loud also. So, and the music that Impact uses when they go to commercials and their background music, I don't like it. I think it's very cheap. I would like to hear them choose something different or find something different. To me, it's cheap, like royalty-free music that I would use in the background of a podcast or something like that. So I'm not really big on it. I don't like it. I never have. But the music they were playing in the background, like the Wild West stuff, was awful. And maybe it was supposed to be cheesy. It very well could have been. Because I have a hard time someone saying, okay, let's use this music. It sounds good. Like they had to have been going for cheese. But going into this match, I had no interest in it. I mean, none. I had interest in Sammy's character and where that was going. I was a little frustrated as a fan and of a viewer that I didn't think, again, what was this opening segment? If you're gonna try go all the way, I really think that there's aspects of Sammy's character which is awesome, and then there's an aspect where he keeps going back to OVE Sammy. And I made years ago when Broken Matt debuted, I said, this is a great character. Now change your moveset. Go all the way. Like Stardust did, if you remember that. Like he actually changed his moveset. So I'm just one of those people that say, okay, when you rebrand your character, when you get repackaged, like really, really rebrand it. I think that a lot of Sammy is still too connected to OVE. He's going to continue to do everything, which is silly because he just broke away from OVE, and they are Ohio versus everything. And I guarantee Sammy's going to continue to say that. So that's the really weird thing here. One of the big parts of this match was that OVE came down. A lot of people were shocked by this, but once OVE showed up, I knew what was going to happen, that he was going to turn on them. So OVE took two L's this episode. They lost to Tommy Dreamer and to their own member, and then Sammy lost to. Okay, we're gonna get to that part, but going into the match, as I said, I had no interest in it. Then it started getting kind of interesting. It's like, okay, they're doing the backstage stuff. They typically do a good job with this. To me, it was just a backstage brawl. This wasn't like Delete or Decay where they just went off the wall and started doing all this really fun stuff. Like this was just a backstage brawl, really, with some cinematics and some music. So I think most people probably enjoyed this more than I did. But they did something different. I'll say this: I enjoyed this more than if they were wrestling in the ring. I'll put that out there. And I'm gonna give you a chance to talk here in a sec. The last thing I want to say is that the assumption is that Ken Shamrock won the match, but they didn't really say. I really think Impact tried to leave us with a cliffhanger, but I don't think it came off as a cliffhanger. I think in their head they're like, okay, we're gonna make them say, oh, who won this? They stopped the match, but they didn't say who won. I don't think it came off like that. I think it came off like Sammy lost. And a lot of people were really upset about that. And I actually think there's going to be a part 2 to this because they only announced 3 matches for the next show. Now, Michael Elgin may have an open challenge for all we know, and that might be the 4th match because they're kind of teasing that he's going to do something. I have this like gut feeling that this is going to continue. So I don't know yet, but What do you got on this as a whole? I don't know if you were how interested you were in it when the match was announced. I just
I was so coming into the match, I was actually a little bit. It felt rushed. It felt rushed because think about it like this, right? Sammy was off TV since Hard to Kill, comes back, throws the fireball in Ken Shamrock's face, and then we're building to a match that's going to take place like 2-3 weeks later. And uh, so to me, like the build up felt rushed. I don't know how much more they could have done, but it still felt rushed. And it didn't give me enough time to really care about it. Having said that, it's not like they needed a whole lot for us to care about. Sammy's a psycho. Ken's he's a legend. He's coming in for for his Hall of Fame induction. And Sammy, Sammy doesn't necessarily need a reason. Again, this is what over is to me, right? To me, an act is over when you feel like you know the motivations of the act, right? Like we don't need to question why did Sammy do X, Y, Z. Like we know Sammy is a psychopath, right? Like he's one of those people who just wants to watch the world burn, and regardless of what he says, like we know that's what and who he is. So I don't really need the explanation, right? Like I mean, we know who you are, right? Like Sammy's over, right? Like we get Sammy, right? And again, Ken Shamrock, I wouldn't use the term over with Shamrock, but we get it. Like you're a legend, you're coming in for a spot. Plus the whole idea, you were getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, and this guy threw fire in your face. Okay, you got to fight, right? So I get that, but the whole thing still felt a little rushed to me in terms of a build, especially considering the fact that you're building it while we're trying to flush out what this new character is that Sammy's doing.
yeah.
Now I listened to Sammy's interview he did with Chris Van Vliet a few weeks ago, and he talked about how this character is basically the hacker character that Solomon Crowe was supposed to be when Sammy was in NXT, but they never really got behind the act. And I'm like, okay, cool. I love that, right? But you still gotta flush it out on TV, right? You gotta give us reasoning, give us development for who, what, why, when, and where. And so yeah, at the end of the day, I was here for the match. Like it is what it is. But with as far as the use of like the cinematic wrestling, like just a little sidebar here, I was totally annoyed by that too. The whole thing, like after WrestleMania, how everyone was just gushing over the Boneyard match. Like, like that was the first time they had seen something like this work. Like, give me a damn break, bro. Give me a break. So I totally get Impact feeling some type of way about that whole thing. But it does get annoying seeing them constantly piggyback off whatever's happening on WWE TV with, hey, look at this on our YouTube, or check out Impact Plus for this because you just saw it on WWE TV. That does get annoying.
Yeah.
Good.
No, I was gonna say I've said this on Twitter a few times, and I'm sure on my podcast, but that is a style of marketing, but it shouldn't be the style of marketing. Like if their YouTube channel had a bunch of engaging original content, and then they did a little bit of piggybacking, like that would be okay. But it's all their channel is highlights and piggybacking. They did like Classic Moment, the debut of Mike Bennett. Like I wonder why they did that. Because Mike Bennett's
Right.
obviously in the news, and I get it. I do get it, but again, you're just being a mirror reflection of what's going on in WWE world. And I think said this to you off air the other day. These are cheap clicks they're trying to get from people.
Yeah.
If someone clicks on Mike Bennett, if they click on, and Drew Galloway won the world title, they said top 5 Drew Galloway moments. You know what I mean? Like, when you're doing this stuff and someone clicks and watches, what's the action step? Like how are you turning that person into a fan of the current product?
Right.
I think they're trying to say, okay, we're trying to get him to sign an Impact Plus. Like that's not helping the momentum of the current product. So that's always been my issue, is how they just continue to focus on this library or focus on people who aren't there anymore. Mike Bennett didn't even hold a title when he was with him. I mean, he held the X Division
Right.
championship, but that was a joke. So he didn't have like this amazing run. He was there for a year. So
But
how?
you know what? Though? So I watched that video when they put that clip up, and again, it made me. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'm not sure how to feel about this because it's like we know Mike Bennett's in the news because he just got released from WWE. And are you saying you want Mike Bennett to come back? Because I remember at the time Mike Bennett signed with Impact, that was a big deal.
Yeah, it
So
was.
I remember when Ring of Honor was on Destination America for a few weeks, and it was the lead into Impact, and that's the only time in my life I've ever watched Ring of Honor. And so I was like, I remember seeing Mike Bennett and Matt Taven and thinking, oh, I like this group, man. They got a thing here. I was like, this feels like an '80s tag team. And then Mike and Maria, I thought they had a really great act where, basically, Mike was a heel, Maria was the manager, and they would spend the whole match teasing a Maria bump, right? But I just thought it was a great act. It worked really well for me. And they were a big deal when they signed with Impact, but WWE has wiped their ass with Mike and Maria's value. And so it's like at this point you're showing them that they debuted here, and it's like, is this really somebody that Impact fans are going to want back? You know what I mean? Like that's a fair question. So, yeah. So bringing it all the way back to the Sami Callihan Ken Shamrock match, I took that as a loss. That you pass out when you're in the submission hold, you lose. Like that's again, maybe they were trying to do the thing where Sammy is maybe they were doing kind of a not a double turn, but maybe this was Sammy's kind of turning babyface in some ways when he attacked OVE with the bat. That was his, I guess, official split from them, and so maybe they were trying to basically continue his babyface turn by having him, valiantly pass out in the ankle lock as opposed to submitting. So that's the way I took that. And like I said, I was fine with it. It didn't do anything great for me. Like to me, it forwarded some story. And I was fine with Shamrock winning. I don't think Sammy gains anything by beating Shamrock in that situation. And so, yeah, whatever.
Do you think this is a babyface turn?
I feel like it could be because I think that Michael Elgin is going to end up as the world champ. And I think if Michael Elgin ends up as the world champ, who's there for him to go against, right? And, we've established that Sami Callihan is over, right? And so if we're looking forward, you got babyface Sammy chasing evil Michael Elgin, and you look at these two guys next to each other, they are polar opposites, bro. Like, what I mean? Michael Elgin is jacked, you know what I mean? Like, super evil. Sammy's the guy with all the personality, but he can still, anytime he wants to, like he'll drop an interview, oh, I'm a 5'8" white guy. Basically saying, hey, I'm an underdog. I'm not supposed to be here. You know what I mean? And lots of people relate to that. And so to me, I think that could be a main event that if they do it, that could last a while. Like that could be a program that carries for a while, having Sammy like chase him and lose and come down to something where he's like, if I can't beat you, I'll retire. And then, have him win on some big emotional, moment like that. But I could see Sammy getting the whole crowd behind him. In some ways, this reminds me of when they, turned EC3 babyface. It's like when you have a heel who you've poured so much into, the natural thing to do is to turn him to a babyface.
Okay. I can see that because they do need, really, babyface wise, they just have Tessa and Eddie, and they're in a program together right now. And there's a pretty distant third place after that, and I don't even know who that is. And then with the heels,
and Sam's kind of the only person on the card that the crowd really pops for every time.
yeah,
Like not pops in the way like, oh, you hear the Stone Cold glass shatter and everybody lose their minds, but everybody chances that OVE, right? Everybody's with it, right? Everybody's with it.
yeah.
And so again, just switch the energy, turn it babyface, and now you got something.
Okay, okay. I can see that because I think they're posed to put Michael Elgin here as the top heel. Ace Austin could get put in a pretty close position to that too. So it's possible. I just think if they get Eric Young and he comes as a babyface, I think they're going to be very babyface heavy. So that's interesting. So we'll see if that's what this was. If this was I wouldn't call it a double turn, but maybe this was supposed to get sympathy for Sammy. I think if that was the goal, I don't think that came across the right way.
Yeah.
So, I guess maybe it is a bit of a cliffhanger, but we'll see. We're gonna wrap this up. The match is announced for next week. There's a fatal four way. Again, they're fighting for nothing. This is Chris Bay versus Suicide versus Trey versus Rohit. I'd be willing to bet Rohit wins this match.
Oh my God.
I mean, he has to. Joseph Ryan versus Cousin Jake. This is not a pay-per-view match. If it was Cancel Culture versus the Deaners, I could get into that. But right now, Cancel Culture is just Joey Ryan wrestling.
Yeah.
I know they're doing the little segments with RVD, but they're not. Again, if you're gonna try go all the way, they haven't gone all the way on Cancel Culture yet. Rosemary's taking on Havoc. They weren't like, hey, we're not getting the Knockouts title match. We're just getting these two randos as Full Metal Mayhem, which it's cool because Rosemary actually never wrestles on pay-per-view. She's always like hurt or something's going on,
Right.
Like there's a time Taya couldn't get into the country. So, I mean, I'm still looking forward to it, but Rosemary loses to Havoc every time. So
right,
and Su Yung and Havoc came back from the Undead Realm, and then there was no follow up whatsoever. They almost came.
How far have those acts fallen?
Oh,
like in terms of like excitement about them. Oh God, I remember when Impact had that beautiful woman. Oh my God, what was her name? The Huntress, whatever her name was.
Yeah.
And
Hanaya.
And she basically quit because she didn't want to like job to Su Yung or whatever. And I'm like, God, man, like at this point, that was all for nothing.
Yeah, seriously. I love the Susie. I love that Susie actually wrestled a full match the other day. But they came back from the Undead Realm as almost together. Right. Rosemary had no reason to save them, and she did. And now she's wrestling Havoc, and Su Yung went to Susie, just complete no follow up whatsoever. Even though that was the end of an episode of Impact, so it's supposed to be your cliffhanger going into the next week, and it's completely fallen off. So Moose is making a special announcement. He was initially supposed to wrestle Hernandez for this thing, which my whole thing with Hernandez is that OGs didn't beat anybody when they came back. They were 0-3 versus LAX, and then he came back. He squashes Rohit Raju. You got to be kidding me! Like again, they didn't beat anybody except a jobber match or so. They wrestled the Lucha Brothers. They lost that. They didn't beat anybody, and now he comes back and he's But from what I understand, Hernandez is going to be around for a little while. So, but he was supposed to wrestle Moose at the pay-per-view. Says he's making a special announcement that's saying it's going to change the face of Impact Wrestling. They always do, and then it's never anything.
Yeah, I think Moose is actually going to end up somehow going against Michael Elgin for the title.
Oh, I was going to say Moose is another guy on the heel side, right up there at the top. Should be world champion sooner than later. I've said this many times. They're clearly doing Moose is wrestling TNA's past, and they've been doing this for about a year actually. Mm-hmm. They never clearly communicate that on TV. They're starting to a little bit better now, but they've never communicated that to the audience. And Moose has just got it out for the past and TNA. Like they're just now kind of doing that. So we'll see. I love Moose, so I'm really looking forward to what he's doing. But Yeah, so we'll see how night 2 is. I mean, it looks like, yeah, it says next week Impact Wrestling Rebellion Part 2. I have a special announcement to make to the world. After the announcement, Impact Wrestling will never be the same. So hopefully it is something major. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But we will be reviewing this show a lot sooner after Part 2. Hopefully it'll be video. If it's not, it's going to be audio again. But work with me, folks. I'm going to figure this out. As I said at the top of the show, it was good to go, and then when we did the to actually try to link up for the live stream, it wasn't working. So I will figure it out. But do you got anything else you want to say in closing before we wrap this one up?
No, you know what, man? Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out to listen to this. Listen, we're having a good time, man. We're having a good time. We just, we want to create a community where everybody can enjoy talk about Impact Wrestling.